Welcome to Next Matter Tutorials. Today I'll create an onboarding workflow and use data references, form fields, and deadlines. My first step will be to create a form to enter candidates' data. I'll use different form fields for that: a short input field for the name and surname, a radio selection to opt for the laptop type, date input for the starting date and the date of birth. To select a manager, I'll use a single choice drop-down. I can restrict the drop-down selection to specific team members if needed. To add an email, I'm selecting an email form field. I can also define field names, placeholders, and specify which field is optional. I can configure each field separately by clicking the cog icon. Note that I can drag and drop my fields as I want. Now, I'll create a checklist for the candidate's future manager. I'll select a dynamic assignee for this step. This means that this step will be assigned to whoever is selected as the manager in the drop-down in Step 1. I'll also create instructions for the manager. I'll use a lot of data references. This way I can reuse any data from my workflow. Let's see how it's done. I click braces and search for the data reference. I can look under a step the data comes from or use the search bar. When I run my workflow instance, the step assignee will not see the data reference braces but a standard text. I'll also use checklist form field and create a task list for the manager. I'll create a deadline for this step. Setting a deadline will send notifications to the assignee's Next Matter inbox, reminding them about the upcoming task. I'll also set an email reminder for the assignee. And I'll specify when the reminder email should be sent. Now, I'll create a group of steps to grant access to the necessary systems. Instead of creating each step separately, I can duplicate the step and edit the details. This step can be completed later, so I'll go ahead and make it non-blocking. It means the workflow can move on without waiting for this step to finish. Finally, I'll send a welcome email to the candidate. I'm using an email step type. I've configured the email to use data references for the candidate email, name, and the manager's name. I've added the references by clicking the braces icon. I can also see what my email will look like by sending a test email. I can put in test data and send it to my email. I'll also schedule a start for my email step. I'll set it to 1 day before the candidate's starting date. This will also generate a notification to my Next Matter inbox. Now it's time to run a real-life workflow instance. Let's click the play icon to start. I'll provide the data and complete the steps. Normally, workflow steps would be completed by different members of the team. For example, the candidate's data would be filled in by the HR department. When the HR would complete the step, it would move on to the candidate's manager to complete step 2. The manager would then fill in the checklist and send this workflow on to the next person. Note that as a workflow owner, I can also take over tasks from the original assignee. I can also decide to complete a step before the starting date and trigger sending the welcome email immediately. This completes the tutorial. If you liked it, you can visit us at nextmatter.com.